The focus of the retreat is oftentimes the content. Because we notice that that's where a lot of the couples are lacking within the church context. So we deliberately plan this to be heavy in terms of content. Very little is done on the leisure bit. That doesn't form our central focus in planning these events. Have you said? Good to go?
Ready to Zoom? There was a domestic issue, so thankfully they are fine.
Okay. So they'll be joining us?
No, they had to rush to Accra for an emergency issue. So when we came from the trip, that's when they had to leave. They left, I think, about 5:30 there. And Rebecca sent her regards to all of you. This dawn, she sent me the link to her program on Facebook Live. You did listen. Okay. Yeah, it was quite an insightful presentation, the justice of God.
Yeah.
I like the way she attends to thematic areas which is not regularly being taken care of on radio.
Yeah.
So there's too much frenzy about evil, demons, devil. And, there must be a balance between demonic attacks and how we fight it and how we live our lives as human beings. May I kindly ask the Johns to kindly come to this table for the sake of the recording. At least if you come this way. Or maybe the first seat here so I can see you well. Because we missed Bridget after her, adventure to Afajato. You have water here. Tango for.
She didn't go to Afajato.
No, she didn't go to Afajato. So you can imagine if we had added Afajato.
Exactly.
We'd have to get a carrier, special carrier for her. It was good. It was a good experience, I think. But I like Albert, the role he played. At the point, I had to support him because I noticed that boys are brave. I really admired the way he was going about it. Very easy, cozy, reducing his pace. Because he's rich alone. One rich of Albert, we'll require two from Bridget to catch up. Yes, if we came this way, I think that will also help us. Okay, I guess by now you are done with the evaluation. In your folder, you would find a material titled A Parable, the Christus, a Parable, the Persona. So we're going to ask one lady to read for us what is in there. Because of the capturing, we need it read. Then one gentleman will take the persona. Before we commence, this morning we're looking at build it right and godly. Build it right and godly. It's so important. So, which of the males or females would read for us? There's one microphone here. Fear not, we clean the microphones. We have sanitizer there, so from time to time they clean it. Okay, so Efwa is doing that of the women, and then any brother ready to take up for the men? Okay, Afeni is also doing for the men. So there are two different parables. For those who came in a bit late, we prayed.
Okay.
Now I encourage you to look for the book. It's titled The Life God Blesses. It's by Gordon MacDonald. He's a very influential author. Having come out of personal crisis, he wrote a book to help persons hopefully avoid crisis. Yes, Efwa, please start.
Once a foolish man built, facilitating spiritual growth, a parable, the persona. Once a foolish man built a boat, his intention was that it will be the grandest, the most talked about boat that ever sailed from the harbor of Boat Club, of which he was a member. Thus, he determined to spare no expense or effort. That the boat builder would come to be known as a foolish man had nothing to do with his ability to build, nor did it have to do with his capacity to work hard. It also was not a reference to his personality, for he was a most pleasant person. People often said this, none of this, that he came to be called a foolish man had everything to do with qualities of person. Invisible qualities, one might say, that no one was initially able to appreciate, but to say anything more about this is to get ahead of the story. As he built, the foolish man outfitted his craft with colorful sails, complex rigging, and comfortable appointments and conveniences in its cabin. The decks were made from beautiful teak wood. All the fittings were custom made of polished brass, and on the stern, painted in gold letters, readable from a considerable distance, was the name of the boat, the persona. As he built the persona, the foolish man could not resist fantasizing upon the anticipated admiration and applause from club members at the launching of his new boat. In fact, the more he thought about the praise that was soon to come, the more time and attention he gave to those aspects of the boat's appearance that would attract the crowd and intensify excitement. Now, and this seems reasonable, because no one would ever see the underside of the persona, the man saw little need to be concerned about the boat's keel, or, for that matter, anything that had to do with the issue of properly distributed weight or ballast. Experienced sailors might wince at this, but one must remember that the boat builder was acting with the perceptions of the crowd in his mind, not the seaworthiness of the vessel. Seaworthiness seems not an important issue while in a dry dock. On one of those occasions when he was sorting out his priorities of time and resources, he said to himself, "Why should I spend money or time on what is out of anyone's sight? When I listen to the conversations of people at the club, I hear them praising only what they can see. I can never remember anyone admiring the underside of the boat. Instead, I sense that my yachting colleagues really find exciting the color and shape of the boat's sails, its brass fittings, its cabin and creature comfort, decks and wood texture, speed and the skill that wins the Sunday afternoon regatas. So driven by such reasoning, the foolish man built his boat, and everything that would be visible to the people soon began to gleam with excellence. But things that would be invisible when the boat entered the water were generally ignored. People did not seem to take notice of this, or if they did, they made no comment. The builder's suspicions were correct. The people of the boat club understood and appreciated sails, rigging, decks, brass, and staterooms, and what they saw, they praised. Sometimes he overheard people say that his efforts to build the grandest boat in the history of the club would someday result in his selection as Commodore. That had no little effect upon his conviction that he made good decisions and was on a correct course to boat club acceptance and success. When the day came for the boat's maiden voyage, the people of the club joined him at dockside. A bottle of champagne was broken over the bow, and moments came for the man to set sail. As the breeze filled the sails and pushed the persona from the club's harbor, he stood at the helm and heard what he had anticipated for years, the cheers, the well wishes of envious admirers who said to one another, "Our club has never seen a grander boat than this. This man will make us the top of the yachting world." There were some boat owners who joined him, sailing on either side and forming a spectacular flotilla as they moved out beyond the breakwater and into the ocean. Soon the beautiful persona was merely a blip on the horizon, and as it cut through the swells, its builder and owner, who at this moment seemed anything but a foolish man, gripped the rubber with a feeling of fierce pride. What he had accomplished. He was seized with an increasing rush of confidence that everything, the boat, his future as a boat club member, and probably as a Commodore, and even the ocean. Why not when one is feeling confident was his to control. But a few miles out to sea, a storm arose. Not a hurricane, not a squall either. There were sudden wind gusts in excess of 40 knots, waves about 15 feet. The persona began to shudder, and water swept over the sides. Bad things began to happen, and the poise of the captain began to waver. Perhaps this ocean wasn't his after all. How about connections with other club members? The ones who sailed from the harbor on either side, cheering and waving. He looked about for them, but none were to be seen. The boat had The boats that had been there in the early part of the voyage had turned back long ago. He had been too self-absorbed to notice. Besides, other captains knew storm clouds when they saw them. Within minutes, the Persona's colorful sails were in shreds. The splendid mast was splattered in pieces, and the rigging was unceremoniously draped all over the bow. The teak wood decks and the lavishly appointed cabin were awash with water. And then, before the foolish man could prepare himself, a wave bigger than anything I'd ever seen held down upon the Persona and boat capsized. Now, this is important. When most boats would have righted themselves after such a battering, the Persona did not. Why? Because its builder, this very foolish man, had ignored the importance of what was below the waterline. There was no weight there. In a moment when a well-designed keel and adequate ballast might have saved the ship, they were nowhere to be found. The foolish man had concerned himself with the appearance of things and not enough with resilience and stability in the secret, unseen places where storms are withstood. Furthermore, because the foolish man had such confidence in his sailing abilities, he had never contemplated the possibility of a situation he could not manage. And that's why later investigations revealed that there were no rescue devices on board. Rafts, life jackets, emergency radios, and the result of this mixture of poor planning and blind pride, the foolish man was lost at sea. Only when the wreckage of the Persona was washed ashore did the drowned man's boat club friends discover all of this. Look, they said, this boat lacks an adequate keel, and there is far more weight above the waterline than below. They said more. Only a fool would design and build a boat like this, much less sail in it. A man who builds only above the waterline does not realize that he has built less than half a boat. Didn't he know that the ocean is dangerous? Didn't he understand that a boat not built with storms in mind is a floating disaster waiting to happen? How absurd that we should have applauded him so enthusiastically. There were a few old men and women off to one side who heard these things and quietly commented to one another. We do not remember that anyone mentioned these things when the foolish man was building his Persona. What's the use of such questions when his boat is a wreck and he is nowhere to be found? The foolish man was never found. Today, when people speak of him, which is rare, they comment not upon the initial success of the man or upon the beauty of his boat, but only upon the silliness of putting out an ocean where storms are sudden and violent, and doing it with a boat that was really never built for anything else but the vanity of its builder and the praise of spectators. It is such conversations that the owner of the Persona, whose name has long been forgotten, became known as simply the foolish man. The one who values this discernment will ask, what does this story mean? And soon discover that the answer to the question. And the one who cares little for insight will dismiss the story and likely go out and construct something similar to the foolish man's Persona. From the life God Blesses by Gordon MacDonald Nelson, 1994.
I mean, this is a very, very harsh story, if you ask me.
Yeah. The first time I read The Life That God Blesses was in South Africa. I'd gone for some training, and the lead trainer asked us to do a review of the book in 2 days. And we were required, as part of the training, to finish it before we came for the session that he was going to facilitate. And for me, it was a shock of my life, because I'd never been to a training where you're given a book and expected to finish in 2 days when you're going to review it.
because that means that every paragraph is connected to the other. If you know about inductive Bible study, that's the methodology they wanted us to use. And Rev Okoye is a scholar in that area. It's one of his key strengths as a pastor. I want you to look again, recast the personal story and relate it to your own marriage. Because there are a lot of things folks aren't doing it right. And it's partly because of where their focus really is in constructing the marriage. So what we're going to do now is you're going to sit as a set of 4. So Sandra and their friends, you have to come this way. You discuss persona. I'll be raising some questions in the air. Just take note of them, paragraph by paragraph, before we come to the Christos. Because, brothers and sisters, we cannot afford to get it wrong. Yesterday, Rev said something, and his daughter immediately his 2 daughters were actually following the conversation, one in the US and one in Accra. And she posted an emoji, if you saw it. And it was when he said, "What would I tell my children if I fail?" And we all have a duty to ensure that marriage looks attractive for our children. If your children look at marriage with disdain, we have failed. Those closest to us, our friends, should not look at our marriage and repudiate it. Because that would be a very bad taste in the mouth of Jesus as his praise. And you know, we are called out of darkness to show forth God's praise. And people should see the difference between just vain applause and giving God praise. Because we're not here to build a Tower of Babel, building a name for ourselves. 3 years ago, some young men walked into my office and said, "Elder, we've been following you and we want to brand you." I said, "Brand me as what?" So when we brand you now, you have a corporate image and appeal, and it means that you're going to charge to make money. You know. I said, "Really? That's not my heart, oh bro. It's not my heart." I'll share with David. 2 years ago, my bank account was closed on account of retreats. It's going to cost you. It's not because there's a guy who is doing what is called divorce hotels. He's building them all over the world. Now when I saw his video, I said to myself, God, whilst he's providing this at the point where marriages are faltering and falling apart, help us to also build it right so that we don't need that. And you are an ambassador. In fact, next year we're elevating the couples to a mentoring level, where everybody who's on a complete page will be required to be mentoring a couple. If you're not ready, we'll ask you to exit, because we've got to have some benchmarks. You've been married for 3 years. It's enough time to mentor somebody who is 1 month. I mean, we are now celebrating 20 this year in November.
Amen.
And yet we're bringing couples together. Why? We don't have to get to 50 years in marriage before we can encourage others that we struggle with some things. You don't need to struggle. We pay the price. Unfortunately, what I see is a lot of people, I've been through it, you to go through small. Why? If you can help them avoid that, help them. Okay, so now we can come into our partnerships and have the conversation. So take your tables. What was his focus? You should have the original somewhere there. Paragraph 2. What was his error? What was his error? It's here, sorry. Come and take it. What was his error? Paragraph 3. Why was it called persona? Why was it called persona? Paragraph 4. What do you find wrong with his desire and expectations? Because he had a desire, he had some expectations. Paragraph 5. Why with his reasoning? The next paragraph, how did public opinion affect him? Because there was a drive to be selected as a commodore. There were specific things. The next paragraph, what does the onlooking world what did the storm or the tempest reveal? The next paragraph, how are couples becoming self-absorbed and ignoring the essential building blocks? How are couples ignoring the essentials and becoming self-absorbed, or becoming self-absorbed, ignoring the essential details? The last but one on that page is between color and convictions. Where is our focus? Between color and convictions. Where lies our focus? In this last paragraph, the very, very last line, there's a concept there called below the waterline. To build below the waterline. But that takes us to the final page. What enables a boat to withstand the storms? From that text, the paragraph that is there, the very first paragraph on page 3. The next paragraph. What are some rescue devices that we need? What are some of the rescue devices that we need? The next paragraph is a short one, but what was the conclusion drawn after a review of his actions? The conclusions that were drawn after his actions. The next one. Why did he fail to build with a storm in mind? Last year spoke at the church on the subject, build your marriage with danger in mind. And the pastor, he actually asked me to choose my own topic. So when I said that was what I was going to talk about, I said, well, why are you going to frighten my people? But that's it. The next paragraph is just a very simple question. What had happened? What had happened? When the old men were talking, what had happened? Because something had gone amiss. Then the next one. Let's discuss why people get so fixated on the outward, ignoring the inward and the lower parts of the boat that we're building. And finally, there's a concept there called the vanity of the builder. I want us to discuss that. The whole thing about the vanity of the builder. Please, you can start.
Because of errors